So I want to thank Annie Christensen for gathering all those slides So the first week of October marks the feast day of St. Francis, and so that's why we're celebrating animals today, because it's a day that is traditionally used to honor our brothers and sisters, our creatures of the earth, and in particular, pretty much our pets. And this year, 2012, we have been exploring community and all the different facets of community. And the truth is, our animals are also a part of our community, are they not? And and one of the things that I love about Animal Blessing Sunday is I get to see a different part of people that we don't normally get to see, because our animals are usually home and we don't get to see that part, and it's very soft. Animals are not only a part of our community, but I believe that they are a part of our souls. And they are our soul friends, they are our family, they are a part of who we are. They are our companions, they're our comforters, they're our healers, they're our counselors. They listen, to us. And I like to think of them as our daemons, D-A-I-M-O-N-S or D-A-E-M-N-O-S. And that is a spirit guide, if you will, from another plane. Because the truth is, they carry within them a different consciousness. And we live in this 3-dimension, we live in our normal world. And having a pet, having a kitty or a dog or a horse or a bird or whatever, allows us to enter into another dimension. It allows us to enter into the world of a dog, of a cat, and the curiosity and humor of a cat, the loyalty of a dog. And the book, The Golden Compass, how many of you have read The Golden Compass or know about it? It's a story about people who have daemons, and the daemons are an animal. But it's not just an animal, it's not just a pet, it's actually a physical part of their soul. And what's interesting to me about the story is that when the children are small, their daemons are constantly changing. Sometimes the daemon's a bird, sometimes it's a wild animal, sometimes it's a dog. And as the people grow older, the daemon starts to become more locked in form. And then, but it is always a part of one's soul. And my experience of sharing my life with my animals is that they have become a part of my soul. I think that's why it hurts so much when we lose them. When they die, it's very important that we honor them just as we honor our 2-legged friends, that we hold a space for that to be, that we hold a space for them in our hearts. So today we're focused on pets, mostly cats and dogs, but I invite us to bless all creatures today in the spirit of St. Francis. And since we are primarily focused on dogs and cats, I thought that I would share with you the difference between cat people and dog people. According to a survey conducted by Hunch.com, 200,000 pet owners filled out this form. And this is what they discovered, is that dog people are 15% more likely to be extroverts, 36% more likely to use a pop song as a ringtone on their phone. They're 18% more likely to consider Paul McCartney their favorite Beatle, 9% more likely to think of zoos as happy places, and 30% more likely to enjoy slapstick humor and impressions. Cat people are 11% more likely to be introverts, 14% more likely to cling to their friends at a party, 17% more likely to have completed a graduate degree, 25% more likely to consider George Harrison their favorite Beatle, and 21% more likely to enjoy ironic humor and puns. Now, whether any of this is true or not, and whether you consider yourself a dog or a cat person, the truth is you can get on the internet and you can explore all kinds of things about dog and cat personalities. I've been lucky to have a lot of different animals throughout my life, and part of that is because my dad would always bring home all these different kinds of animals. So I got to have birds and guinea pigs and mice and a monkey and dogs and cats and a duck. We had a duck because Easter, those little cute little yellow little things. They're so adorable. So my dad brought one home. And of course, they grow into big ducks. And he lived in the yard, and I lived in the city, and he had a little blow-up pool that he could swim around in. And I would take him for walks down Milwaukee Avenue, and he'd be like, wah, 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 with his little, of course, he turned out to be a girl because he was laying eggs in the yard. His name was Sam, and then became Samantha. And when I would reach my street, he would know that it was our street, and she would run ahead of me and run right into the yard because she knew which one was ours. The problem with her is that she would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go, wah, 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 and she'd wake up the entire neighborhood, which did not go over well with the neighbors. And I was a teenager, so I wasn't one to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and feed the duck. And I would leave food out for her the night before, but I don't know if she ate it in the middle of the night or what happened. So we finally gave her to a zoo, and she had never really seen a duck before, so she would hang around the fence with all the people when she was at the zoo. So anyway, I think that one of the things that animals allow us to do is they allow us to expand our consciousness into other realms of reality. It gets us out of our box of how we see things, and it opens it up. I also think that they bring us a sense of lightness, of love, and of humor into our lives that we wouldn't maybe necessarily experience without them. Sometimes, especially if you have kittens or puppies, it's like living with a cartoon, isn't it? The way they're running around the house and doing different things. And I think probably cartoons are probably inspired anyway by most of our animals. At one time in my life, I ended up taking care of a couple of birds for a friend, and it was a parakeet named Caesar, a little white parakeet, and then a cockatiel named Fred. And I'd never really been around birds a whole lot, so this was kind of a new experience for me. But one of the things I've discovered about all animals, and I don't care how big or how little they are, is that they each have a personality. They almost have a sense of humor and an intelligence that's amazing to me. So when I had Fred and Caesar, I would let them fly around my apartment. And Fred, because he was a cockatiel, he could talk a little bit, like he could whistle. He'd go, woo-hoo, he'd look out the window and whistle at people as they went by. So he was cute. And so Caesar would get really jealous if Fred was getting too much attention. And I'll never forget, one time they were sitting on the windowsill, and I was talking to Fred, trying to get him to talk. And Caesar was just, sitting there in his little bird self, and his little leg went out, and he kicked Fred right in the face. He just kicked him in the face. And I noticed that whenever Fred was getting too much attention, Caesar would step in and he would do these kinds of things. I mean, how smart is that? How clever, how funny. And then another time I had my stepdaughter's parrot, Max, because she went away to college and she couldn't keep him in the dorm, so we took him for about a year. And this bird was so bossy. I mean, it was borderline abusive, really. And I had a couch in the living room against the window, and I had 2 cats, and I told the cats, look, you cannot touch this bird. I know you want to, but you can't. He's part of the family. And they would sit there and just drool, looking at this bird. But the bird knew that the cats couldn't touch him, at least when we were around. And the cat liked to sit on the back of the couch and just stare out the window. It was her favorite thing to do. So Max, who had his cage next to the couch and would sit on top of it, would climb down off the cage, and he would walk down the back of the couch. And he'd walk 2 steps toward the cat, and the cat would sit there, and you could see the cat just shaking, getting at the bird. And then he'd just keep taking another step and another step. And pretty soon the cat would take a step away and until the bird literally pushed the cat off the couch. And this was a daily occurrence. This bird could talk and would sit on top of the cage, and sometimes I'd come home from work and I would just sit on the couch exhausted, and the bird would look over me and go, "What are you doing?" "Huh? What are you doing?" I'm like, "Give me a break, would you? I just got off work." But the big thing that it would do was it could mimic voices very well, and our dog's name was Havala, and so we would call our dog, and so the Max learned to call the dog. And so one time the dog was in the kitchen with us, and the bird was in the living room, and the bird said, "Havala, Havala, come on, Havala." And so the dog went running into the living room, and looks up to see that she'd been called by a bird, and she was not happy about that. And I know that you probably have all your stories to tell about how animals have brought laughter and fun and playfulness into your life. I mean, I just think they have the most amazing senses of humor. And you know, we spend a lot of time watching kitties on YouTubes and doggies and all this stuff. And the truth is, there actually was a study. There's a study for everything. There was a study done at Hiroshima University that examined the effects of animal cuteness on human behavior. And what they noticed was that people who looked at pictures of cute baby animals outperformed those who did not. So the conclusion is that when you're supposed to be working and you're online and you're watching those little kitty videos, it's actually increasing your productivity. In Minneapolis this summer, there was a cat video film festival through YouTube, and it was held at the Walker Art Institute in Minneapolis. So they were thinking, maybe they'd get about 100 entries. Well, guess what? They got over 10,000 entries for this. And they were going to have a live festival, you know, show all the kitty videos, and it'll be fun. There'll be about 100 people there. 10,000 people showed up to watch cat videos in Minneapolis in the middle of the summer. I saw some of it on the news. People were actually dressed as kitties with little kitty ears, and one guy was playing with a ball of yarn, and it was silly. Anyway, the winner of the Cat Video Film Festival was a local Seattleite by the name of Will Braden, and he went to Garfield High School. Doesn't that seem funny? He went to Garfield High School and he won a cat video. He won the People's Choice Golden Kitty Award. And, you know, this is one of those days where I actually get to show you a video. And, so rather than just some cute animal one, I chose this one because it's from a local Seattleite and a local kitty. And that's the kind of thing we do with our animals, right? I mean, you know, we can create all these worlds and things about them, and there is a Henry Part 2 and a Henry Part 3. I think a Henry Goes to the Vet, and he even has his own Facebook with about 40,000 followers. And this was a recent entry on his Facebook page. Once, after an abundance of catnip, I hallucinated that I was ascending to the heavens and touching the whiskers of God. I woke up on top of the refrigerator. The truth is, our soul friends also bring us great comfort. I know when I have trouble sleeping, there's nothing better than to curl up with my cat Hari, listen to him purr, and I just sort of start to drift away because of his ability to just relax and let go. It transfers over to me automatically. If you have insomnia, get a kitty. I grew up, as I said, with many animals, and my favorite was Jinx the cat that I got when I was 7 years old. My dad brought her home because someone had tried to kill her, and she was found in a bag in the garbage, and her neck was crooked and her ear never grew, and she was my constant companion through the next 13 years of her life. I didn't play with dolls, I played with my cat. I literally dressed her up every day, I took her places with me, I talked with her, I cried with her, I played with her, and I laughed with her. And she was, I feel like, this link for me, my soul, to sanity and to love and to a real deep connection. She died when I left the country when I was 20 years old. She died a week later. It was almost like, that bond between us was broken and she left the planet. But she'll always be this incredible, I've had some amazing cats, but she'll be this most amazing cat for me. There are many books written about animals and their connection to their owners, the telepathic connections that they have, the mystical experiences one has with them. In the book, Dogs That Know When Their Owners Are Coming Home by Rupert Sheldrake. This is for the scientific mind. Just watching different animals and their owners and the connection that exists between them. And how some dogs particularly will know when their owners are coming home, when their family is coming home. And what they noticed, they did a study particularly with one family, and they videotaped it, and out of 100 times that this woman was coming home, the dog predicted it 85 times. And that the moment the dog knew that the woman was coming home was when the woman started to make her way home. So not when she pulled up in the driveway, not when she opened the gate. And it didn't matter if she was 15 minutes away or 30 minutes away. When she made the decision to go home and started the movement, her dog would go and sit by the window and wait for her. Another example of this connection is a woman who was in England, and she was contemplating suicide. And we talk about how animals are a comfort to us, but her animals went a step further. She said she was sitting in her house in front of the fire, and her cat and dogs, they were all piled in a big pile in front of the fireplace. And she wanted to end her life. So she got up and she went into the kitchen to get her pills that she was going to kill herself with and a glass of water. And as she reached for the pills, her Cocker Spaniel, who was sitting in front of the fire, literally ran into the kitchen, and she said he snarled at her, and his teeth went all the way back, and he was growling at her, and she was afraid of him. And she said, I've never seen my dog act like this, but I was afraid of this dog. I was afraid it was going to attack me. And so she put the pills down, she put the water down, and she just very cautiously walked back into the living room and sat down on the chair. And as soon as she sat down, she said the same dog that was snarling at her jumped into her lap, licked her face, and you know how they wiggle all over with happiness. And so the dog stopped her from making that kind of a move. And there's many stories about that as well. Our soul friends are telepathic, and they are connected with us in amazing ways. And it's not just dogs, it's cats as well. In Rhode Island, there is a nursing home that specializes in the care of people with severe dementia. And this nursing home decided that what they would do would be to get a cat because, you know, it would make it feel more like a homey little place if they had a little kitty. And so they got this cat named Oscar, and they brought him. But the cat was like, it wasn't real friendly. It would just kind of lay in the sun and go off by itself. And they thought, well, so much for getting the cat, you know. But then what they noticed was once in a while, the cat would jump onto one of the beds of the patients. And that person would die within 12 hours or so. So they started to, keep track of this. And 25 times in a row, the cat was with the person who died. And it got to the point that when a nurse would see the cat go into someone's room, she would call the family and say, you should come because Oscar is with your loved one. And I want to share with you, these are the doctor's notes from the chart. This is from Dr. David Dosa. Mrs. K is resting peacefully in her bed, her breathing steady but shallow. Oscar jumps onto her bed and sniffs the air. He turns around twice before curling up beside Mrs. K. A nurse walks into the room to check on her patient. She pauses to note Oscar's presence. Concerned, she grabs Mrs. K's chart off the medical records rack and begins to make phone calls. Within a half hour, the family starts to arrive. Oscar has not budged, instead purring and gently nuzzling Mrs. K. A young grandson asks his mother, "What is this cat doing here?" And the mother, fighting back tears, tells him, "He is here to help Grandma get to heaven." 30 minutes later, Mrs. K takes her last earthly breath. And with this, Oscar sits up, looks around, then departs the room so quietly that the grieving family barely notices. And this happens over and over and over again with this cat. So our animals are members of our families, they're members of our community, and I think it's important that we take a day once a year where we stop and we acknowledge these creatures that are in our lives. We bless the ones not only that live with us, but we include all animals, those in the wild and those who give their bodies for our food. They are our soul friends. They live in another dimension and in another space and time. They can take us to different worlds. Anytime you can go and visit the kitty world, you can go visit the doggy world or the horse world. They bring us a sense of humor, of comfort, of protection, and I think that's Sasha. I recognize her voice. And you know what I'm going to do next year if we do this again? I'm going to have the animal rescue people out there with pets to take home for anybody that doesn't have one. Today's the day to do it. Go visit your shelter, and if you've been thinking about it. I want to close with this story that is in Jean Houston's book called Mystical Dogs. A long, long time ago in a country far away, a noble king who had reigned well and justly for many years and who had lived to know a worthy successor felt his life journey to be complete. Together with his beloved wife and brothers, the king left his great city, determined to climb the high holy mountain and enter paradise while still in his human body. A kind and gentle dog joined them at the city gates and traveled with them. During the long and arduous journey upward, the king's companion, one by one, fell away into the limitless abyss. Only the dog was left to keep him loving company. At last, aged and weary, the king, carrying the equally aged and footsore dog in his arms, reached the doorway to the realms of glory. The gatekeeper recognized him and welcomed him. "Your family and your friends are inside, longing to greet you. Just set that dog down and come on in," the gatekeeper said. "He has no place within these walls." "You mean this faithful dog is not allowed in paradise?" the king asked. "But he's been with me all this way and he loves me. How can I leave him behind?" You must. You've given up everything else. It's not a cruelty to the dog. He simply does not belong in paradise. So set him down and come in. Your family's eager to embrace you, and the wind is icy. I won't come in without the dog, announced the king. Paradise won't be paradise for me, and if the only way I get in is by abandoning an animal who has been good to me, then shut the gates. We'll stay out here together. Come in, said the gatekeeper. You have been faithful to the end, and so is your dog. Your dog is a living example of the Dharma, the way of truth. He has been with you always. Come in. And the great king and his dog entered paradise. So let us each enter paradise with our soul friends, our daemons, our dogs, our cats, our loved ones. Amen.